Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Strong National Museum of Play's Cocktails with the Creators. Tonight, we are broadcasting live from eGame Revolution, which is the Strong's exhibit that not only explores the history of video games and the cultural impact of video games, but also houses nearly 100 video games that you can play. We have console games, we have arcade games, we have computer games, and a whole lot of history surrounding it. And if you look right behind me here, you'll see one of the Strong's 3 computer space games, which is fitting for this evening, since tonight's special guest is none other than video game tech and entertainment legend, Nolan Bushnell. We're all gonna meet Nolan in a few minutes, but before we do that, let's all unmute real quickly and thank Nolan for joining us tonight with a big round of applause. So everybody, here for Nolan and everybody's working to put this together, and for you guys for being here. And let's mute again. As usual, we have a packed house tonight. We have guests from all over the world and from states across the country. We have people from California, Texas, New York City, Florida, but also from the UK, Italy, and as far away as Japan. So to everybody who's here, thank you for joining us. We also have our President and CEO, Steve Dubnyk, with us tonight. Hello, Steve.
Hi, everybody, and thank you all for joining us tonight. I hope you're excited as I am to listen to Nolan. I've had the privilege of meeting him a couple different times in the past, and every time it's a treat. So looking forward to sharing that with you tonight.
And we'll meet Nolan in a second, but real quick, I want to encourage everybody, because we are the National Museum of Play, and we like to infuse everything with the power of play. We want you to ask questions. We want this to be interactive. So if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat, and our team will make sure that Nolan hears those questions and that we share them with him. Our trusty colleague Miranda is also going to share some tips in the chat bar about how to best view the show. So keep your eye out over there and get your questions in the chat bar. But for now, if everybody could stay muted so that we don't have all the background noise and the interruption noise. Does that all sound good? All right. With that all said and done, it is time to go down to collection storage and meet JP Dyson. JP, are you there?
I am here, Lisa. Yeah, thanks so much for joining me down here virtually, if not physically.
So JP is our Vice President for Exhibits, and he's the director of the International Center for the History of Electronic Games, which we call ICHEG, which is the arm of the museum which focuses on collecting and preserving video game history. So he has a big job, but he has a cool job. He and his team do some really fun things. And part of that is to take care of the 510,000 artifacts, 510,000 toys, dolls, games, electronic games, and other artifacts related to play that make up the Strong's core collection. And a lot of those are video games, right, JP?
Yeah, you know, when we first started collecting video games in the mid-2000s, we realized they're having this just transformative effect on play. So we thought we better be preserving this history, just like we preserve the history of dolls or board games or toys. And so now we have more than 65,000 video games here, and hundreds of thousands of archival materials that are really key to document the whole history of the industry from the very beginning, or even the prehistory in some sense. You can see some of the pinball and sort of electromechanical games behind me, all the way up to contemporary games today, which may be in digital form. So that's a whole other issue of how you collect those. I know Andrew Borman's on this, our digital games curator, and also Julia Kovic, who's our archivist, really preserving that history here at the museum.
That's very cool, and that's why you guys have such a neat, incredible job.
We have very cool jobs.
And I just want to give Nolan a chance to say hi. Kylie, do we have Nolan? Nolan, are you there? All right, do we have some tech issues maybe?
We've just asked Nolan to enable his video.
Okay. Well, I know that JP, all those video games we have, Nolan's had a big influence on a lot of them, right?
Yeah, so really Nolan is the person in many ways who founded the video game industry. And so we're gonna walk back and see a few examples of those games he created. You want me to walk back there now, Lisa? We can start looking?
Yeah, I think let's head back, and then when Nolan gets his camera up, we can say hi.
Okay, and as we go by, thank you to Chris Bucky, our director of IT, who's helping me. We're gonna pass some stuff. Just Chris, on my left here, that punching bag game there in the corner, that's actually Sega's first coin-op game. So Sega comes around after World War II. It's a pretty cool, neat artifact, and it shows sort of history of how the media, well before modern boxing games, there was something like that. On my left, another game is Drivemobile, which is the first driving game. Again, it uses a sort of a drum that spins around. And again, think about all those driving games we have now that was descended in many ways from this and from the arcade itself as an institution. Chris, we'll keep going back here. Lisa mentioned we have 510,000 artifacts. We need to store all those. So these amazing storage rooms. I'm in one of the big ones right here. And then, so we have these cabinets here that roll. This is about 2 tons. I move this pretty easily. And maybe the only museum in the world that if you look far at the end of it, I think you may be able to see a giant Sonic statue. So I'm not sure. It's all the way down there. So
JP, how do you not crush your colleagues in there?
Yeah, it was sort of like a little bit like the space, Star Wars sort of, this is Space Invaders with video game guy. The Star Wars sort of effect there with the trash compactor. But I can guarantee the Metropolitan Museum of Art does not have a giant Sonic at the end of one of their storage rooms down there.
JP, I love the giant Sonic.
Tom, is that Tom? Is that, thank you, Tom. Yeah, we did that especially for you.
And by the way, Nolan's never on time, so I'm not surprised.
I see Mr. Bushnell. Nolan, you're on. I can see you.
Just gonna keep going here.
Here I am.
Here he is. So Nolan,
I was actually on, but there was a different link. I don't know. I had one that was in my calendar, and evidently it didn't link.
well, we got you now, and that's what matters. Thank you so much for being here. We're super excited.
Cool.
And JP is down in collection storage, where we store all of those video games, 65,000 of them.
You should see, they have video games in storage here, Dan.
Yeah. Chris, you want to just point over there? So we have more than 300 arcade and pinball machines. So you're seeing some of them. Nolan, I don't even recognize this one. This is Computer Spaceball, which is a Pong knockoff by Nutting and Associates. So we have two copies of those. So they took your idea and they stole it.
Not only that, I gave them one of my boards to license them.
Atari.
And they said they didn't want to license it. They just stole it.
He's Bushnell.
I'm sure
I
that's
like
not the-
the way you can take it, right?
So,
Well, you know, they did me a favor. They showed me how you could be successful even if you were an idiot. And so I felt that it was that I couldn't possibly screw it up when I started Atari as much as they did.
So you
document that whole history. So we have a lot of stuff that you worked on, specifically Nolan here. So we're gonna go by here and we're gonna see some of these, and we'll talk about these tonight. And I'm gonna get settled back here. And then Chris is gonna pan. We pulled it. Martin is our arcade tech. Pulled a few samples from early Atari, from our pretty vast collection of early Atari games here. So I'm sure a lot of these you recognize, and we'll talk about them tonight.
Cool.
I know Steve Lynn was as we walk back here. Steve, actually, let's focus on this one for a second. Steve Lynn, who's a collector, was commenting on Twitter about when I shared a picture of this about Shark Jaws, which my understanding is sort of the licensed, non-licensed version of Jaws from Atari's horror games. So it was a way to sort of capitalize on the popularity of Jaws.
Right.
There's,
Well, we also, you know, there was a time in the early days of video games where there was a lot of static about violence. And we weren't sure that we wanted to do, I don't know if you noticed, but the Jaws was not actually, doesn't have an Atari name on it.
right.
It's horror games.
Horror games, yep.
even though it was an Atari game. We just didn't want to associate with it.
So we already have a ton of questions, Nolan, and one of them actually ties in with something that we wanted to talk to you about early on in the conversation is how did you, when you were a kid, how did you play and how did you get into video games? And one of the questions that we have from Jonah is, what was your favorite cartoon growing up? Which ties into that topic.
Oh, I was a big Looney Tunes fan. I thought Bugs Bunny and, you know, Daffy Duck were all cool. But I feel like my career has been a series of happy accidents. And I got into ham radio, and that made me into an entrepreneur because I had to make more money than I could make mowing lawns and an allowance. And so that's what started my TV repair business. I was repairing TVs when I was 11 or 12. Yep, that was my ham radio gig, and you know, that's.
How old are you there?
I think I was 11.
Okay.
Yeah. If that national receiver was a Hammerland, I would have been 12. I upgraded my receiver.
And how else did you play?
Well, you know, I was big into chess in those days, but also summer in Utah, Monopoly, Sorry, Clue, all the traditional board games.
Yeah. And what is this here? Baby Derby.
I was working at the amusement park, and one of the things that they wanted me to do was host the Baby Derby, which was it was just a promotion because they wanted to bring people in on Sunday, and the idea is if you brought your baby to the park, you'd get in free.
Okay.
You didn't push them down derby cars or something like that.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep, that'd be it.
Lagoon?
Amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it still there, Nolan?
Yes, I'm here.
No. Is the park still there?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
growing and prospering. But you know, I started there to put myself through college, but I ended up really learning a lot about the coin-operated game business. Like I knew how much they had to earn, I knew how much they cost, what have you. Not thinking that I was ever going to do anything in the coin-operated game business. And then later on at the university, I saw the big computers connected to a video screen and played Space War. And I knew then that if you divided 25 cents for 3 minutes into a $500,000 computer, the math didn't work. but I felt that if that prices were coming down and someday it would, so graduated, worked at Ampex for 2 years, and the price came down. And so that was the happy accident of working in an amusement park, knowing the economics, working, you know, going to school at the University of Utah. Two happy accidents.
And did that lead to this?
Yep.
JP, you have another one down there, don't you?
Yeah, we have a yellow one. So Nolan, there are 4 colors produced, right, for these?
Actually 5. There was a white one too in Soylent Green.
Okay, the product, yeah. So this is the yellow one, and this is the one that goes with the arcade flyer that goes along with it as well.
Right.
And we also have the two-player green one.
Correct.
So how do you come up with like the very distinctive shape? Because this is not the mold for future arcade games.
Well, can you see this?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the what I clay. It was a clay model, And I just thought that there needed to be a spacey looking thing. And that's what my mind told me was a spacey looking thing. And then we took it to a fiberglass boat guy, and he scaled it up and made a mold that could do it with fiberglass.
So Nolan, you mentioned the white version of Soylent Green, and one of our guests, Eric, wants to know, how did that happen? How did that product placement come to be?
They called us up
Yeah.
and said, would you make us a white one? And I said, sure.
Well, speaking of product placements, this is Cocktails with the Curator, and we haven't mentioned our cocktail yet. Nolan, you sent us a recipe for a special martini, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I figured now's a good time to raise a glass to Nolan. And thank you for being here, and thank you for the fine martini recipe, too.
My pleasure.
And being in storage, Lisa, I can't have anything, so.
I know, that's why I'm up here. So after computer space, what happens next?
Basically, I felt that Nutting Associates was not a competent company. That I felt that even though we did a couple of $1 million in computer space, I said, hey, you know, it was getting ready for the second game, and I felt that they needed to fundamentally give me a stock option and be a little bit more of a partner, and they turned me down. Thank goodness. And so I said, you know, that's a deal that doesn't work for me. I said, you know, I was arrogant. I said, they're not going to be successful without my skills. And so I didn't tell them at the time, but I went out and I got a contract with Bally to design a game for them. And I came back to them for a contract to design the two-player. And I had enough cash from those two companies, plus the royalties from computer space, that I was able to start Atari and go on my own.
What was it like? I mean, I'm just curious about the nature of the coin-op industry at the time, because, you know, now there's a whole video, and you helped start a whole video game industry, but at the time, I mean, California wasn't really the center of the coin-op industry. That's more what, Chicago mostly, right?
Absolutely.
So what was it like to get that going at that period?
Well, what was really helpful is for computer space, I taught classes on how to repair it with all the distributor networks. So I got to know personally, there's basically 2 distributors in every major city. And I visited all of them in the space between, you know, November of 71 and February of 72. And so I knew the distribution channel personally. Yeah. And they knew me, and a couple of them actually said, "You got to leave Nutting. Those guys have got holes in their head," and so that was also encouraging. I'm almost at that. The 4 prototypes that we took to the trade show, we bought from Nutting and put them on a route. They were A standard. I mean, the computers were all, you know, a rat's nest of jumpers because they were prototypes, but we could keep them going. And so we had this route that, you know, that helped our cash flow as well.
Right.
So when you eventually got to Pong, did you use that same distribution channel that you'd already established?
Precisely.
Yep. And I know, JP, you have a Pong down there, don't you?
You have a Pong, yeah, right behind me.
Yeah.
And so there's one of the Pongs. We sometimes make it available for play here at the museum. And it has some of the, you know, it's now become legendary in the field with the simplicity of the instructions in Pong.
Yeah.
Nolan, you probably know them by heart.
Yeah. Insert quarter. Ball will serve automatically.
And then avoid missing
Ball for high score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was that simplicity part of the key, really, of the game's success?
Yeah, I think so. And it kind of led to my understanding, because what I found out with Computer Space is that it was a complex game, and it did well if it was adjacent to a college campus. It did horribly in a working man's beer bar.
Go ahead, JP.
No, and was it Pong? Was it, is it Handicap Savern? Is that where you first put it in?
That's correct.
Right.
You know, and when we talk about happy accidents, Pong was actually a training program for my first hire of engineer, and never thought that it was going to be a commercial product. But it just turned out to be fun, and I said, well, you know, why not? And then the minute we tested it, there was no question that it was a stone cold winner.
Now, what about Breakout? There's a lot of stories behind Breakout, right, JP? Right, Nolan?
Yeah, in fact, we had a question about that earlier, but yeah, we have a breakout here too as well. So you hired Steve Jobs, right?
Correct. And we had a thing where engineers had the ability to kind of bid on the projects that we had designed, you know, thought. And after Pong and a couple of other things, everybody thought that ball and paddle games were dead, that there, you know, had to be race cars, there had to be other things. And I felt that this was enough of a different game that it would be good. And so I gave it as an assignment to Steve Jobs on the night shift. Jobs wasn't a good designer at the time. He was a good technician. But I knew that Wozniak hung out with him at night. And so I just put Jobs on the night shift, gave him the project, and I knew that Woz was going to do it. And, you know, they knocked it out of the park. I called it hiring two Steves for the price of one.
We do have a question. If you want to answer it.
Short, fat, scruffy.
Is it a true story about how Steve Jobs unevenly split with Woz the money they got from making Breakout?
That's absolutely true.
So there's your answer.
And didn't he give him again, I heard he gave him an artificially compressed deadline because he wanted to go off to a commune or something like that. That sort of thing. I don't know if that's true or not.
So he wanted to go to India.
India, okay.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so you have these arcade games, but then eventually we move into the home, right? And then home Pong is such a big deal, and it's such a big evolutionary step in terms of video games. And I know that JP has some things to show, and if you could maybe talk about what it was like to bring that to market, and how it was something entirely new.
Well, again, happy accidents. That's kind of the theme here. We took it to the toy fair, and we sold 0. And what we found out is that the toy business felt that the top price point at that time was $29. And we wanted $79 for the home Pong. And so we sold none. But my sales manager called up Sears Sporting Goods, because the year before they'd had a home pinball machine, and they did pool tables and ping pong tables and things like that for the winter months. And the next day, Tom Quinn was on our front door, the buyer from Sears. And he came in, and we showed him the game and all that. And he said, "How many can you build?" And I said, Gee, I don't know. Let me check. I went out to my my manufacturing guy, and he said, "How many of these things can we build before Christmas?" Actually, it was before November because we had to ship before November. He said, "Well, maybe 25,000." So I went into Tom Quinn, and I said 75,000, and because I didn't want him to think that we were just going to be sole source. He came back the next day with an order for 150,000.
And yep,
and I
Miranda
just-
has some images here.
Well, what it showed me is that you have a strange ability to make the future bend to your will. And we figured out how to do extra cavities, put on an extra, have a night shift, things like that. And pretty soon, for that year, we actually shipped 185,000.
Wow. And from the ad that Miranda just shared, it looks like you upped that price point from $79 too.
Yeah.
JP, what do you have?
So I actually have that this is the 1975 Sears Wish Book. So we have pretty much a complete run of the Sears catalogs here at the museum. And so this, as you were talking about, here's a Pong ad, and on the facing page, here is pool and air hockey in the sporting goods section, right next to other sort of foosball and pool, that sort of thing. And that's one of the neat things about the collections here is we have these sort of materials as well as a lot of other stuff. So Julia pulled a bunch of stuff here. So we have about 50 pages worth of design documents for different versions of Pong, of home Pong. So if I can do this somewhat carefully here. So this is an early version that was on there. And then, and then this one was sort of interesting because especially those of us who, and I think Regan Chang did a lot of these, I believe. So this one has a lot of the notations and questions like how long will players play, type of fatigue, maximum time for players, those sort of things are basic design questions. And it's really neat to have those sort of things here to show how the games come about.
Yeah, the evolution.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I feel like when you say evolution, Nolan, your thoughts evolve, and some of the things that you produce are so interesting. One of those really interesting products, in my opinion, is video music.
Our biggest failure.
Tell me a little bit about video music.
Video music was the idea that we could basically, in those days, if you went to a rock concert, they had a big projection screen and they'd put oils together and make fancy pictures up there. It was kind of, it was before PowerPoint and we felt, hey, we could do computer graphics. So we thought that we could create this thing where you hooked your stereo up to it, and then we'd make all these pictures that would work on the TV. And it seemed like it was going to be really a successful product. I think we sold 6 at full price.
Well, Nolan, it's great to talk about it, and we have an ad up, but we had to find a video of this, so I have to put on my sunglasses here, and we're gonna have like a little dance party for you. Miranda, roll the tape. Everybody, put on your glasses. There it is. One run of these. This is a rare product at this point.
You know, a funny thing that happened, subsequent to that, we would, if I were staying in a hotel in Kansas, and I hooked up, and I went into their cable TV system late at night, it would invariably have a video music hooked up to their music channel on some of them, you know, and so somewhere, somehow, people thought that was a cool thing to do, and it happened all over the nation. We probably had, I think we liquidated them out for a fraction of what we cost, and somebody got them into all these cable TV channels.
So to me, that's like a party on the screen. And so that is our segue into party animals. And we have a special visitor for you. This guy should look familiar. Bonnie Erickson is with us, who worked with you on Party
Hi,
Animals.
Bonnie.
Hi, Nolan. How are you? Wade's here too.
Hi, Nolan.
Wow, you guys, long time no see.
I know.
Yes, too
I,
long.
I still remember our dinner at Kira Asanyo. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
The village. Yeah.
Those were great days. It's lovely.
Well,
that
you know,
you have so much of a mess behind you. I love everything back there. I like the tape especially. All that colored masking tape looks good.
yeah. Well, I can actually solder here.
Oh my! Of course you can.
So how did Party Animals come to be? How did you guys get paired together on this project?
Well, I wanted to do a toy company that was augmented by electronics, and so we did AG Bear. And we thought the next thing would be, let's do something where we take a puppet and give them voice, synthetic voice, and that's where the party animal came in. And so it was basically a trick of using a photocell.
Yeah.
That when you opened the mouth, all of a sudden it went light come in, and that would make it speak in its particular weird words. And we needed some great design for the plush, and that's where Bonnie came in and made them beautiful.
Thank you, Nolan. I have to tell you, the very funny thing that happened, we had all 6 of them hanging in Wade's office. So every time you turned the lights on, you'd hear the noise.
All of them.
All of them. And then at some point I said, you know, I think that's too much. We took them down. The next time I went into the office, I turned the light on. I missed them so much.
So we put them back.
We hung them up again.
Hey, Pete, you have a few other ones down there, don't you?
Yeah, we have over here, we have the gorilla. I don't know if you can see that or not here. The
Brazil gorilla.
We have the mosquito. Can you go
Oh
for it?
yeah,
The mosquito was our favorite.
that was a big surprise. You
I
know,
think
you.
we didn't-
I remember, Nolan, you were not excited about the mosquito.
So that's
There's never
turkey.
been a time when an insect has been lovable.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, I'm from Minnesota where mosquitoes are the state bird. So I was particularly fond of it. And it turned out to be a really wonderful gift that people gave people because it was so irritating.
And I feel like I'm about to wring the neck of this turkey, but I don't know if I'm
There's
holding
the
it right.
turkey.
Yes.
That's
Tetrazzini.
tetrazzini.
Tetrazzini, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the names of them. Was it Darwin gorilla?
Yeah.
And what was it? It was mosquito. I can't remember the name of the mosquito.
I don't remember.
I can't remember the
Our head of marketing did all the naming on those.
Oh, we
did.
We did the
We
naming.
did, Nolan.
Did you? Okay.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
I knew it wasn't me.
Bonnie and Wade, thank you so much for coming. I know you had an event tonight, so it means a lot that you guys could come out and say hi and talk about this.
We wouldn't have missed this.
We're
We wouldn't
delighted to be here.
Wouldn't have missed seeing you, Nolan.
Well, you know, we've got to have cocktails together sometime. So, you know, I'll get out your way, or
Yes.
you know,
it's getting
now
safe
that
to
we're mobile again.
Yes, yes.
Well, you can. We'll make sure you have our information, so we'll get together. We
I
owe you
love
a
that.
drink. Okay, love you too.
We'd love to see you.
Take
Right.
care.
Okay.
Thank you guys. All right, that was our little.
Bye, guys.
That was one of our little. That was a little segue into these guys. But we definitely have to get back to Atari and talk about the 2600. JP, do you want to say a few things?
Well, I mean, obviously, Nolan, you can say more, but one of the things that I'm interested in is how did you think about, okay, we need to move from Pong, the sort of dedicated system, to something that with interchangeable cartridges. What sort of drove that thinking? And I have some of them here.
We went almost everything that Atari did was driven by technology or limited by technology. And a lot of people don't realize that the 2600 was probably used more microprocessors in 1976 than anything, because the personal computer hadn't been really gone yet. And so the 2600 used a microprocessor that allowed software for the first time. The games before that were what we call state machines. They were essentially flip-flops, all working in binary with gates and what have you, but they weren't von Neumann architecture. They had no software. And the minute we could do software, of course, you could change software, and that led to the cartridges.
So we have a question from a guest that's asking about Atari's secret subsidiary of Key Games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it
Well,
secret?
what was happening is people were knocking us off, and I just felt that world domination was in my goal. And every city had 2 and sometimes 3 distributors that couldn't have the same thing. So if I had one distributor for the Atari products, there were 1 or 2 distributors that wanted them but couldn't get them. I couldn't sell it to them. So I decided that I needed to fill that void, because what I didn't want to do is have somebody else come along, take that secondary channel and take market away from me and get stronger. Only the paranoid survive. And so what I wanted to do is kill as many babies in the crib as I could by limiting their market.
Metaphorically.
Yeah.
Metaphorically, yeah.
Don't go all Herod on us here. So.
And so, so I asked Joe Keenan, who was going to come on as head of marketing, and I said, no, what I really need, the marketing problem is I need to compete with myself. So why don't you start a company called Key Games, like on Keenan. I'll give you my number 2 engineer. I'll give you my number 2 manufacturing person. I'll give you my number 2 marketing person. You go set up the company across the street, and you go to the trade show, and you sign up every distributor that I don't have. And that's what he did, and it worked fine. And I knew that we couldn't keep the secret forever, that Atari actually owned it. So what I did is I started rumors. And the first rumor was that we'd sued Key for theft of intellectual property and stealing employees. Same, sounded plausible. And then we said, we've settled the lawsuit, and we now own a percentage of Key Games. And then 6 months after that, I said we completed the merger and we bought out the part of Key Games that we didn't have already owned, and now we're merging them together. And at that time, Key had a good product called Tank. And all the Atari distributors wanted to be able to distribute Tank. And so I gave everybody the choice. I said, choose which line you want, or you can have both. And everybody chose both. And so we're the first company, coin-op company, that basically had dual distribution in every city.
Now, we do have a Tank behind us, but I'm not going to wheel around. But with Tank was the basis of Combat that came out on the VCS too as well, right?
Absolutely. We found that our hit coin-op games all did well in cartridges.
So we have a lot of questions about Chuck E. Cheese, and I know you wanted to talk about it. So I think, tell us a little bit. We have a question from a guest asking, how did you come up with that? What was the inspiration?
We were selling games, coin-operated games, for $2,000 a piece. But during their lifetime, they would, in coin drop, they'd earn $40,000 to $50,000 in coin drop. And so I thought to myself, hey, I'm on the wrong side of this equation. So my objective was to build a chain of big arcades, not compete with my customers who were competing for locations in bars and bowling alleys and what have you. And so the idea was to have a big arcade, wrap it around a pizza parlor, and then keep parents engaged, because the kids are going to be wanting to do it. There was also a factor that we knew that kids 2 to 12 loved to play the games, but there were no appropriate places. And so it was kind of two things we wanted. We wanted a kid's place, and we purposefully tried to keep teenagers out. And we did that by saying that no kid is allowed without their parents. And of course, no teenager ever wanted that to happen. and that really led to the success.
So how about the character? Where did the Chuck E. Cheese character come from, and all those different animatronic guys?
The original code name for the project was Coyote Pizza. And I went to a trade show and bought a walk-around costume that was being sold into the amusement park business of what I thought was a coyote. And the thing with the caricature is you kind of overlay your expectations on what the character actually looks like. And when it came to California, I knew my engineers could make it talk, but I didn't think we didn't have anybody who was a sculptor. And so I thought, we'll just make this, for our prototype unit, we'll just make this character talk. And I said, how's the coyote coming? And they said, it's not a coyote, it's a rat. I said, how do you know? He said, well, it's got a big pink tail for one reason. You know. And I said, okay, no problem. We'll just call it Rick Rat's Pizza. When I went into marketing, and marketing said, no way, rats are dirty. That you know, this is a restaurant. You'll never get past the health department. And I said, well, you know, I don't want to delay the project. Can he be a rat, but we just de-emphasize his ratness? And they said, well, maybe. And I said, okay, give us a name. Rick Rat's Pizza is not going to fly. And so the next week they said, we got a 3-smile name for you. I said, what's that? And they said, Chuck E. Cheese. So that's the whole story.
So we have video games, home video games, pretty much the introduction of experience economy, right? So you have a broad base of experiences. And then you also were instrumental in developing the first automated navigation system?
Yeah, that happened because I was into sailboat racing, and there was a thing that was called SatNav, and it was kind of the precursor for geolocation, the geosynchronous navigation systems. And I knew that that was coming, so I felt that we could do some tricks to map match and get a navigation system and be all ready and to steal the market when the geosynchronous orbits systems came in. And we won the Transpac, its first finish, and that's where ETAC was founded, over the chart table on that race.
And that's way ahead of its time. Agreed?
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, not ready for that. So you're on the cutting edge of technology in a lot of ways, and now you're thinking about new ways to play and new ways to combine technology into play. And this, whoops, which way am I going? This was actually one of my favorite games throughout the lockdown. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
I can't see what you're doing.
Saint Noir.
Oh yeah. Well, Saint Noir is a murder mystery game that is powered by the Amazon ecosystem, and you use your voice to interrogate suspects and figure out who's lying.
Mm-hmm.
And the suspects have to tell the truth, but the perp can lie. And it is fun. It's really fun.
And you've been thinking a lot about the way that play and education and technology can interact, right?
Correct. Well, it turns out that if you can get a student engaged, they can learn significantly faster than if they're just kind of pushed into it. And so the gamification of education is a passion of mine, and we will be live with a new system. The company's name is LearnUp, and we will be ready for the September school season.
That's very cool. One of the things, I mean, one of the main reasons that, one of the main focuses of the museum is the importance of play and how play is the best way for our brains to learn no matter how old we are. And so when you talk about that, it really resonates with our mission.
Well, your mission could not be more on point. Play is really how kids learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think somehow there doesn't need to be a divide between play and learning. Schools do that, but they don't need to.
They don't.
And my objective is to integrate that. I homeschooled my kids for a year in Europe, and I integrated museums into their education. Like, we were 4 months in London, and the Imperial War Museum and the Victoria and Albert and the Museum of Science and Industry. And, you could basically cover almost a year's worth of teaching in a week in one of those, in one of the arms of these museums. And I think it worked really well. My kids, I took them out of school, and when they came back, they were right into they didn't miss a grade.
Exactly. And so we do have a few more questions from our guests, and they're a little all over the place. So it's kind of going to be kind of like a round robin. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. I'm going to start with this one because I hadn't heard about this. How was being on this show Code Monkeys? I always laugh when they cart you off from the bankrupt game studio with the rest of the furniture.
I don't know. These are weird things that happen to me, and I can never really quite grok what people were trying to accomplish, but you know, I think it's fun to allow people to have fun with me.
Yep, yep. This one's a whole different topic. If you could relive your Atari days, what would you do differently?
I think I would have pushed forward and taken the company public a little bit sooner than I did.
Yeah.
Or I tried to. I kind of missed the window.
Yeah. Let's see what else I have here. Do you have any ongoing regrets about Apple?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had the ability to own a third of Apple for $50,000. You think I don't regret that?
On a totally different topic, is Go still your favorite game, even though it's not a video game?
Yes, it is. I
Really?
play a game of Go every day.
Every day. And who's your best opponent?
Oh boy. There's a guy in Shanghai that I feel like I'm good friends with. Like I know his wife's name, and I know he's got 2 children, which is, I guess, strange in China right now. And he's an engineer as well, and we play and chat.
Yeah.
Lisa, just a little Go trivia. Just thought of. So Tetris is Hank Rogers got his into Nintendo by challenging Yamauchi-san to a game of Go, I believe. He created an early Go program for Nintendo. So sort of another great game that came out of playing Go.
Oh yeah, well, I hate to say this. In fact, I'm embarrassed to say this, but Hank's a better Go player than I am. I think he's. I think he was a 3 Dan. I don't know where he is now. And
If we get you together, can we watch you play each other?
Oh yeah, but he'd have to give me 2 stones.
All right, JP, we have our marching orders. We're setting this up. What is the one game system that you're most proud of? Your one game or system or accomplishment that you're most proud of?
I actually think it's Computer Space.
Yeah.
It was really, really hard. And there was a lot of really, I mean, going from a blank sheet of paper to that game was kind of a tour de force. And I'm arrogant enough to think that I may be one of the handful of people in the world that could have done it.
It's a beautiful thing too.
Yeah, and I'm proud of the way it looks. I think it's actually kind of artful.
I think it is. I think it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Speaking of beautiful, are there any modern games that really catch your eye?
Graphically, I like Monument Valley a lot. I really like how that looks. I don't know if you're acquainted with it.
It is one of my favorites.
Isn't that a great one?
It is beautiful.
It's just beautiful. I think that I'm still like sort of the civilization thread where you're world building and the new Sims. You know, again, world building. I like those. As you get older, you can't play first-person shooters because your reaction time is just too bad. You know, your kids just mop the floor with you, and it really irritates me to be beaten by my kids, and of course, they get irritated if I beat them. So it's a lose-lose proposition.
So something like Monument Valley is not only beautiful, it's kind of relaxing and challenging at the same time.
Exactly.
Yep. It's this magical combination.
Yeah.
Here's another question that I'm not familiar with. Can you tell the story of U-Wink?
Yeah. With U-Wink, I was aiming to have a Chuck E. Cheese basically runs out of gas when the kids get to be 12. They say, oh, it's a little kid's place. And yet I knew that the families, so families that had tweens, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, those kids were vetoing the trip to Chuck E. Cheese. And so I felt, let's do something that is Chuck E. Cheese-like, but focus on tweens and young adults. And I felt that the time had come so that we could have on the table ordering electronically, cut our labor costs, and then have games that you could play at the table, so that it was a little more of a family experience rather than parents in the restaurant part and the kids in the game room. I thought I'd bring it all together, and that would decrease the footprint that we needed so that we could go into a mall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turned out that, again, lucky accident, Chuck E. Cheese was the right formula at the right time. And it was basically, we went into cheap space, big space, that could be packed on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it didn't matter whether you had big crowds on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. With U-Wink, we had high rent in a mall, small footprint. And we were very busy on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but nobody home on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And we didn't have enough capacity on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to pay for the overhead so that we could make profits the other ways, and the company failed. And also, sometimes the right time and the right place. We were 2 years before the iPad.
Yep.
And our table things with touchscreen and the computer and everything were about $12,000 a table.
Wow.
It could be done for $400 once the iPad came out.
Yep.
Just 2 years later.
So again, you're a little bit ahead of the technology, a little bit ahead of being ready, with the world being ready for these ideas.
You're right.
Yep.
No.
Well, Nolan,
Right time, right place is a good thing to be.
it is. I want to thank you for doing this tonight. And I want to thank everybody for being here. This is a really important event for the museum because you've contributed so much to video game history and the history of play. And we're grateful for your time and for doing this. Thank you to everybody for coming out. If you haven't been to the museum, we hope we see you here soon. We also hope that you consider continuing supporting the museum and all the work that we do to promote play and to preserve the history of games and video games and play. JP, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I will say one thing, that one of the fun things about doing these is discovering things in the collections you didn't realize you had. And so probably can't see it, but I found we have this token from Chuck E. Cheese from San Jose from 1981. So I think San Jose was where you had the first store. So this is, going back to the very, very beginning almost. So it was fun. Nolan, was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm going to be out in New York, upstate New York in September. So I'm going to come by and bug you guys.
We would love that. We'll love to see you. We look forward to it. Thank you so much, Nolan. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Miranda, let's roll our pictures and our tape.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. These are photos that our guests sent in of them playing with your games and toys.
How fun.